Nathalie Simper, and this is The Limitless Musician, a podcast by KE Creative. Our team helps modern musicians find modern solutions to building a sustainable music career. Along with my co-host, Dr. Catherine Eminent, we will help you learn what it takes to build a career that enhances your life instead of restricting it by becoming the limitless musician you are meant to be. Hey there, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the podcast. Grim is here in the studio with me today, and he's been putting in a lot of hours with me in the studio these past few weeks. If you follow the Limitless Musician on Instagram, then you know that I'm currently cooking up a real-world survival guide to share things that music school doesn't teach you about building up your career after you've got those degrees. If you want to snag a free copy for yourself, then sign up for the Limitless Musician newsletter at thelimitlessmusician.com to get an email when it's available, which it should be dropping either the week of this airing or the week after. I'll definitely be putting an announcement on socials. Catherine and I are also opening up 5 spots for the Music Teacher's Playbook, and we're both really pumped to help private teachers build financially stable studios. If you're finally ready to build a new studio, transform your current studio, restructure the business side of your studio, or just feel like you're falling in love with teaching again, visit www.kecreative.com/MTP to see if you're a good fit for the program. And as always, the links for both of these will be in the show notes description. I actually had several drafts of how I wanted this episode to connect with the season's overall theme of showing up authentically as a professional classical musician. And honestly, with everything that has been going on in the world recently, combined with my own personal challenges, I wasn't really feeling deeply connected to like being super motivational and that kind of stuff. Thinking back to the last few episodes, I feel like both the ups and downs of finding a way to be yourself in the professional world have been touched on and really discussed, especially in the last episode where Catherine and I got a little bit more personal about our own experiences. The truth is that it can be much easier to just say, be yourself, and it's a whole lot harder to do it. It's not always going to feel great in the moment to stand up for yourself in uncomfortable situations, change your habits and routines, or to go through rejection after rejection. Now, I promise this is not going to be a Debbie Downer episode, like, oh, everything is so difficult and nothing gets better. But I really did feel strongly that the struggles of doing the right things for you need to be spoken on and need to be given space because let's face it, classical musicians don't like to talk about struggling. I mean, really, who does? It feels super vulnerable, like you're admitting to the world that you're flawed, that there's something wrong with you, or maybe that you're broken. But being vulnerable, even if it's just with yourself, is a crucial element to learning how to move forward, not just in your career, but in your life as a human too. So today's episode is going to touch on being human and being a person, living your life, focusing on that winding journey of self-discovery, how to deal with those inevitable roadblocks that come up. And I'm also going to share some of my favorite resources that have been really, really pivotal in my own efforts to build a life that I find worth fighting for and excited to live. As a classical musician, you are totally trained to follow the rules. You play your instrument a certain way, you play specific repertoire, you build your resume the way that you're taught with all of those experiences that you were taught matter. You begin to believe that following the rules are going to guarantee you the results that you're looking for, regardless of that expectation being set just through your own perspective or by others literally saying, if you do this, then you will get that. Eventually, you hit that moment where you don't get the gig, you don't win the audition, or you don't get the opportunity that you feel like was locked in and that you really put in all of the work to deserve. The first few times you hit a dead end, it might have been a little easier to shake it off as like, okay, it's just this one incident, and then I'll try again and I'll keep going. But once you've experienced a few dozen or maybe even a few hundreds of these rejections, then you end up feeling like defeated, frustrated, confused, and maybe even a little bitter. I know when I graduated with my master's degree, I was feeling those emotions and a whole lot more. I felt disillusioned with the higher education realm of classical music because, in my own personal experience, there were practices and structures in place that perpetuated toxic environments. The day after I graduated, I quit flute cold turkey. And I thought that I would just be one of the many people who had two useless degrees. Even though being a musician had been a core part of my identity since I was 5 years old, I felt that walking away from it all was the only way to preserve the other parts of myself that survived 5.5 years of being in college as a music performance major. The reason I felt so strongly to talk about the uncomfortable side of authenticity is because sometimes walking away from what you know is the most powerful way to reconnect with who you truly are. In the moment, it may not feel that way. It may feel like failure. It may feel like you're giving up, like you are missing something that can help you be successful. But walking away is a totally valid and a pivotal way to reconnect with the parts of you that are human, are just part of who you are, whether or not you are a musician. Think back to 5 years ago when the entire world had to walk away from everything that had been established and known. Life in every capacity changed. And I know that there are still things that haven't ever really gone back to what I considered normal before the worldwide shutdown. If you've ever considered walking away from your instrument as a career, a hobby, a passion, or as part of your identity, then you're not alone. You're not broken, and you're not weak for feeling like your idea and the reality of being a professional musician are completely out of alignment. In the last few episodes, we've covered a lot of ways to reframe perspective to find that sweet spot to building your unique version of a successful career. And while it may seem repetitive, really wholeheartedly, I believe that changing your way of thinking is the most deeply rooted way of embracing lasting change, even when that change brings about challenges, discomfort, setbacks, and disappointments. During my first year of undergrad, I had a band director named Dr. Bobby Adams. And if any Stetson people are listening, go Hatters, because you know who this is. He was such a huge influence in band and music education in the state of Florida, and he still is through his students. And I learned so much from him, not just in that one year, but also from all of the educators and the peers around me who had the privilege of knowing him and learning from him longer. He would occasionally give speeches about music, life, or anything in between during band rehearsals. And one of the things that I really remember him saying that really stuck with me was be a person. And over the years of hearing Bobby isms, as they're known as, be a person is the one that I hear most often quoted by anyone that had the privilege of knowing him. As I've gone through different chapters of my life since that first year in undergrad, that phrase be a person has taken on different meanings. And right now, in my current stage of life, I take it to mean be compassionate, be grateful, be patient, be alive. Over the course of your life, you may have many jobs or careers. You may make a lot of money or a little money. There may be an infinite number of things that you won't be able to control, but you only have one life to live. It may feel like a burden to have to deal with life's obstacles, but from a different perspective, those burdens can be a privilege. You can learn how to be compassionate with yourself when things aren't going the way that you're expecting them to, when obstacles pop up that you really don't know how to approach and have to take a step back to figure it out. You can be grateful for the things you do have in life that make you excited to show up and do the things that you're passionate about, or the things that help facilitate your ability to be a musician, to make income as a musician, or however it is that you make your income, and to enjoy the things that you consider luxuries in your life or necessities in your life. You can be patient with yourself, with other people, when you fail, when you make mistakes, when you realize that there are things that you don't know and there are things that you really want to know. You can be patient when others are frustrating or when there are situations that you can't control. You can be patient and understand that sometimes waiting for the right moment is just as important as pushing forward. And you can be alive. You can focus on all the things that you have outside of being a classical musician that make you excited to experience things, to have your relationships and nurture those relationships, to do things that make you feel satisfied and fulfilled. For me, these days, I feel satisfied and fulfilled just cuddling with my dogs on the couch because that's really the energy that I have some days. But whatever it is for you, it's important to see that there are things beyond being a musician, beyond being a master of your instrument that make you a person. So if you take nothing else from this episode, I hope that you can be a person and find out what it means for you and how it can help you focus your perspective in a different way. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not the kind of person to say thank you to my challenges when I'm going through them. I'm definitely a realist, which means that I know that there are going to be things that are within and also beyond my control. And because of this, it motivates me to be proactive about the things that I can control because let's face it, that list is a lot smaller than the other. And I'm a person who likes to feel in control. But you're not always going to be motivated to move the needle forward. You won't always feel like it's fair that you have to work so hard without being guaranteed success. So, what do you do when you have all of those emotions and know where to put them? For me, I love to read books. I love reading classic literature and about worlds that only exist on paper. Reading helps me avoid hyperfixating on the problems that I need to find solutions to, and it allows me to remind myself that there's a world beyond my immediate frustrations. For my husband, it's playing video games. After working a long night at the hospital, he can escape to something that's completely different than all the stress and all the craziness that he has to experience at work. For you, it may be reading, video games, sports, socializing with loved ones, or even playing your instrument, even if that instrument is sometimes a part of your challenges. When you connect with the parts of you that don't revolve around your career or how well you've mastered your instrument, you can be more compassionate, grateful, patient, and feel more alive. Something that Catherine and I hear a lot when we talk to musicians looking for a career coach is the idea that if I buy a better instrument or get another degree, then I'll get the career that I want. And while quality equipment and a quality education are great tools to have, that instrument and that piece of paper won't be the ones doing the work. You will. You are the one playing the instrument. You are the one earning the degree. So, in order to make long term and sustainable progress, you have to focus on the one thing that all of the other music careers won't have: you. My own idea of who I am beyond musicianship has changed so many times in my life and in this year alone. It hasn't always been easy to spend the time to truly understand what I need and value on a fundamental level. And I've definitely failed a lot in trying to figure that out. But in trying to build a lifestyle that allows for me to be a person, the smallest little steps have been the biggest game changers for me long term. So I'm going to share a few resources that have helped little ideas click that then turned into big lifestyle changes for me, and especially within the past like 5 years. And I'll include links to all of these recommendations in the show notes so that you can check them out for yourself. So, since we're in podcast land right now, my first recommendation is going to be a podcast called Work Life with Adam Grant. He's an organizational psychologist. And the thing that immediately turned me onto this podcast when I first came across it was in his introduction when he said, "I study how to make work not suck." He interviews people from all backgrounds and careers. He has interviews from The Daily Show. He has interviews from basketball coaches, astronauts, professional poker players. And in these interviews, he breaks down these simple concepts that are applicable to things in your own life and in a way that is very simple and easy to understand. I first came across this podcast during a time when I was burned out from driving all over the place for gigs and students. And I was stuck in that freelance grind, feeling like all of my work was not really amounting to anything. Even years later, like now, I'll really listen to episodes that are from like, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And I still find insight into what I'm dealing with now. It's from the first year of the podcast, but I highly recommend listening to his interview with Ariana Huffington. And that episode is called When Work Takes Over Your Life. And as I mentioned, I'll put a link in the show notes description. The next recommendation that I have is one that makes all the rounds when people talk about building habits and, the habits of successful people. This one, you've probably heard it, is Atomic Habits by James Clear. And it's literally all about how small habits can change your life. So very on the nose for today's topic. There are exercises throughout to help you clarify your approach on forming habits, how they serve you, and how to make who you are work for you. Another book recommendation I have is The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. I am very much the target audience for that book because I tend to hold on to like every little emotion that passes through me, and I have to have a thought about everything that impacts me. The idea of just letting people be who they are and then choosing to be who you are sounds very simple. And this book really, in a clear way, describes why that idea has become so complicated and how you can begin to let go of things that are beyond your control. My last recommendation is a book called Organize Tomorrow Today, and it has several authors listed, so I'll include all of their names in the description with the link. This book is a little bit more practical in its approach, and it it relates to sports psychology to understand how to break down big goals into small, everyday steps. This book is really great if you're already kind of in that mindset and ready to make new habits, but you just aren't sure how to actually start adding them into your routine. This is a great resource. When I was looking to make big changes and I had huge goals and I was thinking, how am I ever going to even begin to tackle these? I read Organize Tomorrow Today, and it really gave me all of these step-by-step instructions of how to break these down, how to organize my time. And I still use some of those habits, even though it's been years since I first read that book. So those are my 4 recommendations of resources. If you're on the go a lot, as most musicians are, or you just don't really have a lot of periods of time where you can just sit and dedicate yourself and all of your attention to a book, then all 3 of these book recommendations are available as audiobooks. You can listen in the car while you're cooking or doing chores, running around. And if you're like me, you'll probably listen to it at 1.5 speed just to keep up the pace if you're listening to an audiobook. Being a person doesn't always have to feel the way motivational posters make it out to be. Real life is going to have bumps, sharp turns, sudden dips, and just a ton of obstacles that we can't always be prepared for. It's okay to be vulnerable with yourself about burdens that are keeping you down or problems that you just don't know how to solve yet. And sometimes just hearing that can be enough to help you move forward in spite of those things. So I hope that this episode has helped you kind of reflect on that and acknowledge that, it's okay to not feel like a cheerleader every single time you're in a bind or dealing with a difficult thing. And lastly, if you have any podcast or book recommendations, I have worked through a couple of my books. I'm kind of in between podcasts right now. So I'm always on the lookout for new things to dive into. So let me know what I should listen to or read next. And it doesn't have to be music related. It can be literally anything. That's all for today's episode on The Limitless Musician. If you liked this episode, follow us on Instagram at The Limitless Musician to tell us what you want to hear next. Remember to subscribe to our newsletter to get exclusive content that won't show up anywhere else by clicking the link in the show notes. Until next time.